All right, hey all. So we're going to talk about something that I'm pretty passionate about. When people fail long term on their eating plan or their nutritional plan, what are the biggest mistakes they make, especially around keto foods? And so, really quick, do me a huge favor as you come on. What is your favorite keto meal or low carb meal that you go to? Now, this is really Hey, Michael Rutherford, what's up, buddy? So this is really a psychological shift. It's a psychological component to this because on one hand, I might recommend people to take what they currently eat, make it low carb or keto friendly, and they're starting their journey, so they're more likely to do it. On the other hand, those food choices might not be the most optimal long-term choices. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine I'm working with, and he's like, Dustin, what about fried chicken or fried fish? I love fried fish. I'm like, great, right? Now he eats it like 7 times a day or 7 times a week. He's frying in peanut oil. And I'm like, long term, that may not be the right choices, right? But short term, it's a good place to start. So when you're thinking about going low carb or keto, you're thinking about making some transitions and changes. I want you to think about a few things. Number one is be aware that for long-term results, your current diet will not be the diet you stay on. Also, over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months, as you're changing your food habit, that won't be the same plan that you're on next year. It's going to evolve and change as you evolve and change. And this is really in everything in our life. We should always see that progress. Now, there might be a lot of similarities to it. So here's a few mistakes that I see people make is that they start going low carb or keto and they go Google a bunch of recipes. A good friend of mine's on right now, and he did this. And they start doing, like, let's use one, they put fat in their coffee, right? And they start putting pounds of butter and pounds of heavy cream in their coffee, but they started consuming 500 calories for coffee. Yes, it may be keto friendly, but you just consumed half of your calories for the day or a third of your calories for the day in your coffee, right? You didn't get substantial food that you were eating. So this is very common. Or another one is that you start seeing keto snacks or keto foods, and you start going after these keto snacks and keto foods because you're a snacker. Yes, that's a good idea to kind of substitute some of those, but it shouldn't take away from real food that you should be starting to consume. Another one that I see is people go, well, I can have pizza if it's keto friendly, and they make a fat bread. My comments for some reason are not coming up on my chat. I'm not sure why. Somebody on Facebook send me a comment. I got to see if this is working. For whatever reason, I can't see them. So, but they're using this fat bread, cheesy, like literally the cheese, the pizza they're eating is 80% cheese. So, which again isn't something that I would want people to consume on a regular basis. But what happens is we start switching, and we tend to go so far over here. Oh yes, it's working on Facebook. So sweet, Jen. Facebook, give me some love. Give me a shout out, Facebook. Where are you guys all zooming in from? You can do the same thing on Instagram and all the other channels. Okay, so what I want you to think about when you're starting the dietary transition and try not to fall into the pitfalls is you really want to start moving towards whole foods. Like, I don't like to call them real foods. Everything's real. I'm not saying they're not real, but foods that are more found in nature and more naturally formulated. So the reality is the most high quality diet that you're ever going to follow ideally should be plain old protein, plain old fat, and plain old carbs, like vegetables, fruits and vegetables. Like, that's reality is that should be the majority of what we're consuming. If you catch that yourself, and people plateau all the time, when they plateau, what often happens is they catch themselves going back to, they're eating a high amount of cheese for their snack. Basically, they kind of skip lunch. They're hungry, but they don't really want to eat or cook a meal. So they just pound a bunch of cheese, pound a bunch of salami, and they actually never really ate a substantial meal. I'm not against cheese or dairy. If you tolerate it, that's fine, but it still should be a moderation, should be the foundation of your food intake, if that makes any sense. So these are the most common pitfalls. What happens is, I was just talking to a friend of mine, the psychological reinforcement of a food that has less quality nutrient based, let's say like a keto friendly bar. Okay. Most keto friendly bars are keto friendly. Most of them are legit, although they're probably not really stacked with the highest quality of nutrients in most cases. And it doesn't replace a meal, but yet you're using that as the substitute. So what it's doing is it's satisfying your need for a candy bar, right? So what happens is you may fall off the wagon at some point, and now you're just got to go back to a candy bar. So you go back to your old candy bar because you've gotten accustomed to doing that. So I want you to think about as you're going through your journey. I don't eat dinner. I fast all day. Um, is dinner lunch for you or is it dinner for you? I don't know where you live. In the Midwest, dinner is lunch. In the West Coast, dinner is dinner. Dinner is evening, supper. Anyway, so I want you to think about this is as you're going through this journey, just be aware that you're going to have, you want to change at the beginning. It might be, it's okay. In Minnesota, if I tell my friends, just, you can have chicken wings, right? Doesn't mean I want them to have chicken wings every day. I just don't want them to think that they can never have them, if that makes any sense. Ultimately, I want them to start eating clean proteins, vegetables that are low carb, high quality fats on their vegetables, some butter, some olive oil, some avocado oil, or with their fish, right? Something that's going to be very substantial. If they have fruit, choose low carb fruits if they're losing weight or burning body fat. And if they're not, then have fruit in moderation based off of your lifestyle choices, right? I want that to be the majority, right? And that's what I'm ultimately looking for. And I want you to start thinking that's where you want to move towards. It doesn't mean you can't have these things. Like I found something at Costco and it's a keto friendly, kind of like a granola. I made it into a cereal. It was awesome. So good. Guess what? In 2 days, I ate the whole thing. I just pounded all of it. I don't eat a lot of nuts. I don't eat a lot of nuts and seeds. It's just not my thing. But that cereal was so good, I just binged eat on it. I just binged eat on it. If I kept buying that, I would just keep binge eating on it, right? That's not the way I really want to go. So I want you to always think about this is that what phase are you in your journey? Are you in the beginning phases where you're in a transition? So when I transition people into better eating, it's really simply as take what you currently eat and find a way to make it low carb. That's the beginning phase. The second phase is, okay, take what you currently eat, make it low carb, and can you make it, let's use it cleaner, less processed, less, out of a jar, out of a bottle. Yes, we make spaghetti at our house. We probably make it once every 2 weeks. It's out of a jar. Most of the ingredients are all natural. It's using hamburger sources, and then we use a low carb noodle. My wife uses low carb noodles. Some of my kids do too. And so it's still, when you look at the ingredients as a whole, it's more whole food ingredients. It's not packaged or bundled up into other things, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of phase two. Phase three, most people don't ever go past phase two or never need to, right? Phase three is like, I'm going organic. It's got to be all this perfect and unbelievable and amazing. It can't have anything artificial in it. That's kind of into phase three. And that gets a little bit more extreme. You have to be very choosy. I was to the point where I didn't like to eat out because I was so particular about my food. Yes, I was crazy. Not really a good place to be and be in a relationship. So my wife and I had she almost didn't marry me because of it. It was like that big of a deal. So how crazy is that? My food habits almost didn't cause us to get married. True story, because I was so extreme and I was going to phase four, which is I'm not even normal. I can't have fun anymore. So that's phase four, where everything matters, and just so you know, I was sick. I had an autoimmune condition back in the day. I had all these problems and allergies, everything else. So everything seemed to bother me. Ironically, I healed the mind, I healed my body, I healed myself, and very few things seem to bother me. So you can fix a broken system. But part of that is trusting the body to get back healing and healthy again. And so that's just part of that whole journey that I hope you guys are going through. So just keep this in mind, is that ultimately start with transitioning what you currently do and move it toward you like to eat a lot of burgers, eat a burger with no bun, right? That's a transition. But should burgers be the only thing you eat? Probably not. And this, right? I use chicken wings as an example. Like deep fat fried chicken wings on a regular basis probably isn't the most optimal food you should consume on a daily basis, right? Like I don't really need to explain that to people, but it doesn't mean you can't have it once a week or once every 2 weeks if that's kind of your vice. But just know, right? Just know when you go to have chicken wings, you also think about all the beer that goes along with it, right? It's a program. So if you want to get away from that, then you're going to have to make some adjustments. Maybe only have it once a month versus once a week. And your body starts to reprogram your decisions that you're making long term. So I hope this makes sense. I had to say this. We were thinking about what kind of live to do. And it's one of those things where it makes a difference, because why do people quit? They quit for a lot of reasons. And I have a lot of that's number one failure that people have in this journey is they just quit. That's the number one mistake people make. But there's a few other factors that go along with this. So if you're plateaued not right now, I want you to ask yourself, are you eating a lot of processed food? You increased your nuts. Nuts aren't processed, but they're just not, you wouldn't live off of nuts, if that makes sense. I have people that literally eat a whole bag of nuts. And I'm like, but what else are you eating? Right? You wouldn't live off that. That doesn't make any sense. That's not the way to go here. Like, that's not the path. And so you really want to think about it as like food and nutrition is boring. In relative, it's boring. It's basic. It's simple. If you ever meet like the people that are the leanest, the ripped out bodybuilders, right? Not all of them do roids, by the way. A good friend of mine, he's a natural bodybuilder. He does awesome. But if you were to spend a couple months with him, like it's boring, it's monotonous, it's bland. Like it's not like their food is. I mean, you ask him, he'll say his food's amazing, but it's not. Chuck, it's not amazing. It's average, if that. It's because he's not adding everything else that we would normally add to it. That has we've gotten so addicted to or so much enjoyed. And that's the real reality. We don't necessarily have to go to that far because you might not want to be 4% body fat, right? But if you're looking to get healthier and lose some body fat and lean out, you got to lean a little bit more towards the way Chuck lives, but just maybe not as far as he is. If you're okay with being a little softer, right, and you enjoy and love yourself the way you are and you're ready to rock it, then awesome. Then allow a little bit more flexibility. That's a choice at this point. So I hope that makes sense. I eat a lot of the same every day. Eating a lot of the same foods every day, I'm going to go into that, Jen. If you guys have questions, I'll stay on for a few more minutes, answer questions if you have any questions for me. I did a really cool live with Alex. I'm going to be doing another one, I think, with Brandy. I want to do a live with you here soon too, but just about some changes that you can make on plateaus. But eating the same food over and over again, there's part of that's a personality trait. There's a few people that I know that are kind of live the longest, 90 years old, they're thriving. And I have my own theories about longevity, but we won't go into that today. But in most cases, those people eat the same foods every day. The challenge is there's not that many people that live in their 90s. So it's like, I don't know if it's they eat the foods the same day every day, or they just found the right foods to eat the same day. Does that make sense? So based off of nutrition, somewhat of a variety or seasonal eating should make more sense based off of the human body. So eating seasonally would probably be somewhat like in certain seasons, you're going to maybe move more predominant towards a certain type of food sources. Certain fruits are in season at certain times. Certain vegetables are at season at certain times, if that makes any sense. Animals change. Our blood chemistry changes throughout the year. People don't know this, but your cholesterol tends to be higher in the end of the winter into the spring, and lower into the fall, in the end of the summer. Your cholesterol tends to change. So our body's changing physically, sunlight, all this other thing changes. So there is something to be said about you should have somewhat of a change in your diet. People that eat only chicken breast and they don't eat the chicken skin or the fat underneath the chicken skin, they actually might be missing some essential vitamins and minerals and some amino acids that are more predominant in the skin, which can have a huge impact on detoxification. So there's some really unique things for people that are eating the same thing all the time. Because what I don't know is it giving you enough to satisfy your needs to rebuild your body? At the same time, it's easier when I take somebody that eats the same thing to make changes because it's very consistent. So it's easier to make subtle shifts. I wouldn't tell them to change a lot at once. The person that eats whatever they want, whenever they want, there's no consistency, it's chaos. And it seems like we're always guessing for everything. It's hard to put them on a plan or a system because they don't feel like they want to stay on the plan because they're used to so much variety. So I hope that helps. I don't know if I really gave an answer to that. So I have missed some, but sorry for asking again. What food should we have? Brian, thanks for asking that. What food should we have, Brian? I mean, the foundational foods is, I kind of talked about this. When we're looking at getting healthier, I don't care if it's keto, low carb, I don't care if it's Mediterranean, wherever, the majority of your food sources should be, for the most part, one ingredient items, right? You're looking at a protein, right? You're looking at, if it's vegetables, it's one ingredient. If it's a fat source, butter, it's one ingredient, right? Olive oil is one ingredient. Avocado is one ingredient. If it's fruit, it's one ingredient. That's more of the paleo style of living, which I think in essence, that's really the fundamental foundation of human existence, right? Metabolically, people have gotten metabolically unhealthy, meaning that they store body fat really easy because they excessively consume carbohydrates or are excessively inactive. those individuals may have to lean away from certain types of fruits until we get more metabolically flexible. Then they may choose to have it certain times of the year or seasonally. So that's the majority we need to lean towards, if that makes sense. And so when people are starting out there with their diet or their nutritional plan, my recommendation initially is take what you currently do, right? Take your current food sources and modify them to be lower carb. Okay. So we're trying to metabolically get healthy. So if you're eating burgers or you're eating, let's say steak and potatoes, I'm from Minnesota, you would take the potato out and maybe replace it with some low carb option and still have the steak. That's step one. Step two of that process is now we're going to introduce maybe a little bit more fattier based foods after the carbs come down. And we're going to start being conscious of, can I choose more natural or more one food items? Because they might be choosing things that are like a pizza. I eat spaghetti every night. Well, that's not a one food item, right? It's got a lot of stuff in it. It might have a lot of processed stuff, depends on what you buy. So you might go, okay, I'm going to eat less spaghetti, not take it away completely, but I'm going to choose maybe a chicken and vegetables with some butter on it, right? Something more basic. And so I want people just to think that that's where they want to move towards as a majority of their diet and allow a lot of the flexibilities, because I want you to enjoy the finer things in life too. Okay. So that's kind of a stepping process. And then if you go past that, you're going into the organics, and it's really particular. You're really, everything has to be all natural, and you're not willing to go out to a certain restaurant because they may use a certain type of oil. That's when you get to the extreme side of it, where I find that those people are hard to live with. That used to be who I was. And so my wife almost didn't marry me for it. So I've allowed a lot more flexibility because I know the majority of my day and majority of my food sources are coming from a really good source. And I trust my body into handling it and detoxing it. If it can handle what it handled in my teens and my 20s, it can handle what I'm doing now, right? I've gotten healthy enough to be able to handle those things. So I hope that makes sense. But I work with a lot of the extreme cases where everything seems to bother them. All right. I hope that answered your question, Brian. Barbara, I've been eating paleo for the most part of about 8 to 7 years. That's awesome. I actually read Dr. Lauren Cornane's book in 2001, 2002, maybe 2003. I don't know, somewhere in there. And it was very insightful. I learned a lot from him. A lot of people have debated him. He's probably one of the most universal, well thought out authors and researchers on the topic. I like paleo. To me, paleo is probably the fundamental place for most people to be. It's just you get the psychological and emotional relationship with food that gets people confused. So I want people to think that's the majority of their lifestyle. If they're metabolically not flexible, we got to watch out for sweet potatoes. We got to watch out for fruits, because it can not allow people to get their results, so then they jump off ship too fast. If that makes any sense. So, but I think it's a good way to lean towards. But people's relationship with food is too much, and then some people don't do dairy on their paleo diet. Some people do, so you get a little flexibility there. So I hope that makes sense. Judy, I love the 5-day fast. Also, we do a really cool. Who's fasting with us? Who's been fasting recently with us? We have a really cool program that we've been doing, and it's worked really well for people. I'd love to know why you love it, Jen and Judy. I'd love to know why you love the 5-day fast so much. Fasting is really kicked in to something that you're hearing a lot of people buzzing around about fasting, keto, and fasting, and all this stuff. And what's important for people to know, and I can go on a rant about fasting, because most people are fasting and it's not going to work. It's not going to work long term for what they probably want it to work for. And because of, if they're metabolically inflexible, they may not, fasting may not, it may leave them in limbo too much. So I really believe that most people in America or any civilized country should actually be fasting with tools, with ketones, but only the right form. And that will support their fasting and teach them how to do it more often. So fasting seems to be better if it's done in anywhere from 24 hours to 5 days, intermittent at least, and sometimes further, but more regularly. So and I use this as an example. If you want to be good at fasting, think of it from an ancestral perspective again. Certain times they would go long times without food. Sometimes they would go less times without foods. More often or not, they would have a lot of food at one time. They would eat it, and then they would go for bouts without as much food. They would go into a fasting state, or they would be preserving their food, trying to eat it so because they knew that they don't know when their next meal is, right? the human body's designed to go through that very well and function well. That's why ketones are so vital, because that's what protected our brain and our heart and our muscle system from decomposing or breaking down or being lost, is ketones. Ketones are vital for that. But fasting itself has a lot of healing and health properties to it. So I think fasting is the future of nutrition. The challenge is we just don't want to make fasting competitive. And some people are doing that today. They're almost over fasting and they're not fueling also. Remember, our ancestors would have fasted and fueled. They did both. And so the way to analyze that the best is not about how long you can go without food and not the scale. It's how you can improve your own performance or maintain it. If you're 55 or 60 or 70, how do you maintain your performance? Part of the key of being older, like Michael Jordan said this, he's like, there's a certain point in his career, he wasn't trying to get better. He just was trying not to get any worse. He wanted to maintain his top of his game as long as he could, because he peaked, right? And you want to stay peaked as long as you could. And eventually you start to decline, and the decline has to be as slow as possible, right? So fasting and keto, drinking ketones is vital to that. Peaking and then maintaining it as long as humanly possible. And we're finding the recipe. We're actually creating it right now. And that's what's neat about what we're doing is we don't have all the answers. We're creating all the answers and getting clarity on what's working and what's not working, because the science is there, but really it's not, I don't use the word testing. The results are there. With the results, we're getting enough feedback from enough people. We're able to give a really good answer for the majority of people, right? There's always outliers, but the majority of people. So with that said and done, I got to jump off. But hey, listen, in the chat below or message us, whoever invited you to follow me. If you're in one of our groups, message the admins of the groups. But if you're not drinking ketones yet, you should try them. Now, I'm a huge fan of don't try things, do things, but I'm okay with people trying them to learn about them. I'm okay with you, try 10 packs or try 20 packs and learn about what they are. Because as soon as you understand the significance of what ketones will do for your brain, your heart, your muscles, and how it can help a huge impact on your metabolism, you're going to understand the importance of how you need them to change your life long term, right? If you ask anybody that's been using them for more than 60 days, they'll tell you they'll completely change your life if you let them do that. So get back to whoever is inviting you to follow me, or if it's me or one of us, our admins, come reach out to us and let's help you get that result you're looking for. And if you're drinking ketones and you haven't fast with us, come fast with us. It is remarkable. And why these women or ladies, most of them, are seeing such huge results is because of the zone effect, the max amount effect of ketones in their system. They're noticing a higher level of results because of the higher level of ketones that most people can't do on a low carb or ketogenic diet by themselves. It's really hard to do, and you have to be super well formulated and super disciplined and super active to do all those things and already be healthy when you started to get that result. Now you can do this through the iFast, and that's why I want people to experience that too. So with that said and done, I start talking fast. Can't live without them. They are amazing and changed my life. They are. So easy, more energy. My gut health feels better. It feels great. My gut health feels great. These are awesome. I love hearing the comments and the people saying the results of it. That's super cool. I am reading those. They're on one of my platforms here. So with that said and done, you guys have an awesome Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. Get outside, get some sunlight. If you live in the cold weather, you can move. I did. I left Minnesota. I came to California. I like it a lot. That said, cheers, y'all.